Okay, so it's actually the topic I want to discuss is the workplace after the pandemic. There's been a lot of focus on empty buildings and energy loss, on things to measure and understand distancing. But there will be a day when we're going back to the office, and the numbers actually show that. So more than 50% of companies will go back, but in a different way. They will change their workplace and office concepts. And workers want it as well. So more than 70% of the workers are asking for hybrid working policies. Many sources out there, but these numbers come from CBRE and Cushman and Wakefield. But when you read about these things, it's often like remote work or work in the office. It's like it's binary, but it won't be. It will be a new type of workplace ecosystem with a combination of working remotely from a coffee shop or in a local community hub or a co-working space, or of course back to the office. And we strongly believe that the office will again play a very important role, but with this changed environment have some new challenges or new focus points. And this summarizes it. So it's basically how to handle, of course, with people working remote and not being there, how to control it, know when they will come back. But also the role of the office will stay. It will change. You will want to attract people in a different way, make it more interesting for them to be there and come back to the office. And it will be more of, and I love that phrase, we space. So it will be more focused not on the concentration or desk work that it has been from the Herman Miller days years ago when original designs of offices were made, or the open plan office. It will more and more be a space where we interact, meet people, we nurture creativity and innovation. And when we do that and have meetings, they will more and more be mixed. So we have to take into account a setup that allows remote participation in anything that we do at the office. Desk sharing, if not already the case, in many European markets it is, but still not in all companies, that will be more prominent. We'll see more flexible office and shared desk concepts, or many types of hybrids in between it. So how to plan for it, how to adapt your space planning for it will be a challenge. And then wellness is becoming more and more important as well. So healthy building, not just only for the pandemic and the viruses, but because of the pandemic, people think about their breathing, the CO2, chemical traces. So the health of the building becomes more and more important as well. And while we've all been using sanitizers and washing our hands and cleaning desks in between usage, of course, a focus on the way that cleaning is being done will change permanently as well. Now, we can talk in theory a lot, but I would love to share a few examples of projects or things that we've done, and these are just a few of many of projects that we've done across Europe, but also the globe, actually. I won't have time to go into all of them, so I picked one, and that's the Amsterdam office of Cushman and Wakefield. Because they've done things quite thoroughly and quite differently. So one of the things is they applied removable desk pads to keep clean surfaces. They changed the layout and fit out of the office, so for different ways of interaction. They applied these very cool carpets, which actually guarantee safe distancing at return of the office, indicated pathways throughout the office, instructions everywhere about safety when people are in the office. So that are the key components. But obviously, what would the smart office be without technology? And there are several components of what Spacewell has to bring, has been rolled out in their office location. And they labeled that the 6 feet office concept, which is a bit of a best practice being shown now also to other regions and offices and customers around the world. Now, what's the technology layer? It is measuring with image sensors from the ceiling, but it could be other sources, the actual presence of people, not only to count the presence of people and how space is really being used, but also to measure social distancing. So you can see distance and monitor when there are breaches, when people don't behave. Air quality, comfort, and that goes wide, CO2, thermal comfort, but also radon, chemical traces in the air. Those are being monitored throughout the building to guarantee a safe presence of employees in the building. And finally, but maybe the most important, various apps, mobile apps, kiosks, room displays to actually guide the people at the office to find colleagues, to find a free working space, to find a desk to work in together. And all of that is done based on a digital twin. So we copy the layout and the basis of the office, so it's easy recognizable. And we map the sensor data on top of that. So we can directly see where there are over-occupied spaces. We can see which part of office concepts actually work or are underutilized, or maybe changes are needed. We can see evolution over time. How is change management working? How is the planned occupancy of people working from home or in the office working over time? And that really gives you a live view where you can see crowded areas, empty areas, directly throughout the complete building. So you can guide employees to the right spot and understand what's going on in your building. And certainly at the early days of returning to the office, overcrowded areas is something you really do not want yet. So that's something you'll be able to detect quite safely and quite easily. And we have a lot of experience there already with segments or sectors where people have returned to the office already because they need to give continuity. If it's not public transport, postal distribution, and so on, they already use these technologies at the moment, of course. And that gives, of course, a lot of insights and reports. It shows you where there are breaches, where people are not behaving according to guidelines, not social distancing. You can not only see where, so you can work on certain measures or change the layout, but also when and in which concepts of the office you have most issues. So it gives you, as we like to call it, a social distancing index. And as you see here, these are actual numbers. They reached around 87% score. So yeah, still quite some breaches and has been optimized since then based on these numbers. Same for the indoor air quality. It's not only having analytics and seeing the general thermal comfort and where there are tension points in certain meeting rooms around CO2 that have been identified. It actually also gives your employees that data in the palm of their hand. So if it's now on a room display or on an app, they will be able to immediately see what's the general thermal comfort in the meeting room that I'm about to book or walk into. They will see alerts if CO2 levels are not optimal or not okay. So again, one of the things to give assurance to employees that they will have a great place to work when back at the office, or actually nudge them to make other advised choices when they are at the office. Now, it's not only about breaches, it's not only about indoor air quality. What is really going to play a big role from our perspective is the space monitoring, which means that nobody really knows. And I loved, it was actually, I think, in one of your Clubhouse chats, Walter, that I joined, where one of the guys from GLL said, you know, if we're honest, nobody really knows what's going to happen when we all return back to the office. And I really like that answer. It means that we can assume, we can make models, but nobody really for sure knows how employees will behave. So monitoring that and having that understanding of which concepts work, immediately being able to adapt or tweak the workplace concept and the layouts is going to be key. And there, IoT and live data of sensors is going to be a game changer. And we see that as well in several larger accounts, like in the financial sector. One of them is, for example, Danske Bank, who is actually using the IoT data on the go to adapt their plans for relocation and merger of offices as they execute the project. So it's done in parallel and in real time, measure, adapt. And that's the future for me for space management in true buildings. And finally, you want to give something back to your employees, which means that it's great to have those sensors, it's great to optimize the office, but you know, how do you show this to employees and tell them what's going on? And they're being very vocal and visible, showing all the data that you're collecting, finding colleagues, showing real-time data, give it in any possible touch point, if it's now an app, a room booking tool, in your calendar. We find that really important as well. And it creates a different new user experience. It allows people to make informed own decisions or even nudge them to their behavior. Like, okay, you're going to book a certain meeting room. Why not use the one that fits optimally for your number of participants instead of taking a bigger boardroom because just you like to sit a bit roomer or bigger? Those tools will nudge you and disadvise to do the wrong thing. As just one of the basic examples. So that's basically the case I wanted to share with you today. Any questions, Walter?
Yeah, amazing. Well, I like that you mentioned the Clubhouse session we had. Maybe one question about that. Well, about what you talked about also, Carlo, is what happens when certain places within the building are oversized or over how do you call it?
Oversized.
Yeah. What happens? What do you give them like a big horn or something like that happening that's going on in the building? What happens?
The first step is avoiding it. So actually, when you're looking for a workspace or a room, the apps or the tools will actually tell you like, hey, you're actually using it with too many people, or you're in an overcrowded area. Don't go there. If the user do it still and it leads to a situation which is above what we tolerate, then it will actually trigger messages to the local site manager, facility manager, or host, whatever title it has, that there's a situation where they should do something about. We have some projects where actually, in that case, a red light at the location turns red. Yep, indeed. Which is easily to be done with small, cheap wireless LEDs that you can deploy these days, and that then gives a visual cue. That has a higher adoption in the US, for example. In Europe, people don't tend to like that. It seems a bit too belittling, and we get some pushback on that in scope of projects. So they like it more subtle and human, that a floor host, for example, comes and intervenes. Yeah.
Yeah, but what you said, what Cushman was doing is that they really adapt changes to their plans with the data that is coming out of it.
Yeah, they have done that, but the one that I mentioned that was most impressive was Danske Bank. It's a big Danish bank present in the Baltics and across the Nordics, and also in the UK. They actually have a whole multi-year plan to, shift new headquarters, shift people around in buildings, as so many big corporates do. They have a framework of the plan, but are using IoT data to actually refine the plan as they execute it. And
wow, yeah.
That I love in the approach. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. And what is your answer to buildings or to building owners that don't have the technology in place right now? And people are coming back to the office, of course. So what should they do first? Where do they start?
Well, the first step is monitor. You can't never generalize. Every case is different, but measuring occupancy with sensors, no apps, no room booking, because you see often people look at that first. They look Outlook and calendars, and I think that's the logical first step. But actually monitoring what's going on as a first step, and then taking actions and deploying policies through booking systems and tools makes a lot more sense. So start with the monitoring first would be my advice. If that for whatever reason is not possible, then allow ahead planning of capacity so that who is going to come back when would be my second option.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much. I think that's a very useful advice for a lot of buildings that don't have the technology in place yet. Yeah.
And they see it too big. People still think old school about IoT and think, it's huge innovation project. It's going to take long. It's going to cost a lot of money, but it's becoming a commodity in the meantime. So actually these things are a lot cheaper than most people still think when they look back at their experience from a few years back.
Yeah, well, that's cool. That is a nice add-on as well. Well, thank you very much, Carlo. Great to have you with us, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, great. Bye-bye.